Christian Kids Automation.
Long ago, in the land of Israel, the most important story in the Bible was about to unfold. At the center of this story is Jesus, the Son of God, who came to teach people about God's love. People came from many towns to see Jesus. They listened to his words and saw his wonderful miracles. As a great Passover festival approached, Jesus and his disciples began their journey toward Jerusalem. When they came near Jerusalem, they stopped at a place called the Mount of Olives. Jesus turned to two of his disciples and gave them special instructions. He said,
"Go into the village ahead of you. You will find a donkey tied there with her colt. Bring them to me."
The disciples did exactly as Jesus had told them and brought the donkey and the colt. The disciples placed their cloaks on the donkey, and Jesus sat on it. Then Jesus began riding toward the great city of Jerusalem. People in Jerusalem heard that Jesus was coming, and they hurried to see him. Many people cut palm branches and brought them to welcome Jesus. Some people spread their cloaks on the road to honor him. Soon the people saw Jesus riding toward them. The crowd shouted with joy,
"Hosanna! Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord."
Even the children shouted with joy, praising Jesus as a king. But some of the religious leaders were not happy when they heard the people praising Jesus. They said to Jesus,
"Tell your followers to stop shouting."
Jesus answered them,
If the people keep quiet, even the stones will cry out.
As Jesus came closer to the city, he looked at Jerusalem and began to weep. After entering Jerusalem, Jesus went to the great temple, the most important place of worship in the city. But when Jesus entered the courtyard, he saw something troubling. The temple had become a busy marketplace. Jesus was deeply troubled. The temple was meant to be a house of prayer. Animals ran across the courtyard. Jesus said,
My house will be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers.
Many people who were sick or injured came to Jesus in the temple, and he healed them. Children in the temple shouted again,
Hosanna to the Son of David!
But the religious leaders became even more angry when they heard the children praising Jesus. The religious leaders were becoming more determined to stop Jesus. One of Jesus' disciples, Judas Iscariot, went to the religious leaders and offered to betray Jesus. They agreed to give Judas 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment he began looking for a way to betray Jesus. Meanwhile, Jesus sent two of his disciples to prepare the Passover meal. The disciples found a large upstairs room where they prepared the meal. That evening, Jesus and his 12 disciples gathered together in the upper room. As they sat down together, Jesus shared a special meal with his disciples. During the meal, Jesus did something surprising. He got up from the table to wash the disciples' feet. When Jesus came to Peter, Peter said,
"Lord, are you going to wash my feet?"
Jesus told them,
I have given you an example that you should serve one another.
Then Jesus said something that shocked the disciples.
"One of you will betray me."
The disciples looked at one another and asked,
"Surely not me, Lord."
Jesus quietly told the disciples that the one who would betray him was sitting among them. Then Judas left the room quietly to carry out his plan. During the meal, Jesus took some bread, gave thanks to God, and broke it. He said,
"Take and eat. This is my body given for you."
Then Jesus took the cup and gave thanks again. Jesus said,
"This cup is the new covenant in my blood, poured out for many."
The disciples listened quietly, trying to understand the meaning of Jesus' words. After the meal, they sang a hymn together. Then Jesus and his disciples left the house and walked toward the Mount of Olives. As they walked, Jesus told his disciples that they would soon scatter. He also told Peter that before the rooster crowed, Peter would deny him 3 times. Soon they arrived at a quiet place called the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus asked his disciples to stay there and pray. Then Jesus went a little farther into the garden to pray alone. Jesus prayed,
Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done.
When Jesus returned, he found his disciples sleeping. Jesus returned to pray again, choosing to obey God's plan. Suddenly, lights appeared in the distance. Soldiers were coming into the garden. Judas arrived with the soldiers to show them where Jesus was. Judas walked up to Jesus and greeted him with a kiss, the signal for the soldiers. The soldiers stepped forward and arrested Jesus. One of the disciples, Peter, pulled out a sword and tried to defend Jesus. Jesus stopped Peter and healed the servant's ear. Jesus told Peter to put away the sword and allowed himself to be taken. The disciples became afraid and ran away into the darkness. The soldiers took Jesus away to face trial. Peter followed at a distance to see what would happen. Jesus was brought to the house of the high priest where leaders gathered to question him. Some people tried to accuse Jesus with false stories, but Jesus remained calm and silent before them. The high priest stood up and questioned Jesus before the council. Jesus answered truthfully that he was the Son of God. The leaders became angry and decided that Jesus should be put to death. Meanwhile, Peter was waiting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl recognized Peter and said,
You were with Jesus.
Peter quickly said,
I do not know him.
Soon others accused Peter again, and for the 3rd time he denied knowing Jesus. Just then, a rooster crowed. Peter remembered Jesus' words and realized what he had done. Peter went away and wept bitterly. Early in the morning, the leaders brought Jesus to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. Pilate asked Jesus,
Are you the king of the Jews?
Pilate could find no crime in Jesus, but the crowd shouted louder and louder,
Crucify him! Crucify him!
Pilate washed his hands before the crowd, saying he was not responsible for Jesus' death. The Roman soldiers mocked Jesus and made fun of him. They placed a crown of thorns on his head and a robe on his shoulders. Then the soldiers led Jesus away to be crucified. Jesus walked through the streets toward the hill called Golgotha, the place of the skull. The soldiers nailed Jesus to the cross. 2 criminals were crucified beside him, one on each side. The soldiers divided Jesus' clothes and cast lots for them. Many people stood watching as Jesus hung on the cross. Jesus prayed,
Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing.
One of the criminals beside him asked Jesus to remember him. From noon until afternoon, darkness covered the land. Jesus cried out.
Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.
Then Jesus gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain in the temple tore in two from top to bottom. A Roman officer watching the cross said,
Surely this was the Son of God.
A man named Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for permission to bury Jesus. Joseph wrapped Jesus' body in linen cloths and placed him in a new tomb. A large stone was rolled across the entrance of the tomb. Roman soldiers were placed to guard the tomb. Early on the first day of the week, several women came to the tomb. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and the stone was rolled away. The women looked inside and saw that the tomb was empty. The angel said,
He is not here, he is risen.
Later, Jesus appeared to his disciples and then returned to heaven before their eyes.